The alien vampire girl had given up. Then he stepped out of the shadows. Part 1. First contact in darkness. The emergency klaxons of orbital station Helios cut through the artificial night cycle, jerking Commander Dominic Reed from a fitful sleep. His neural implant buzzed with priority alerts even before his feet hit the cold metal floor of his quarters. Commander Reed to Medical Bay Alpha. Unscheduled vessel approaching. Medical emergency protocol engaged. Dominic grabbed his field kit without conscious thought, his mind already shifting into the focused clarity that had made him the youngest chief medical officer in the Terran exploration fleet. The corridors of Helios Station were bathed in the pulsing crimson of emergency lighting as he sprinted toward the medical bay. Status report. He barked into his comm as the turbolift descended toward the docking level. Vessel of Nixtari design, sir, came the clipped response from Lieutenant Patel at operations. They're broadcasting on emergency frequencies, requesting immediate medical assistance and asking for you specifically. Dominic frowned. The Nixtari were among the most reclusive species humanity had encountered since breaking the light barrier 50 years ago. In 7 years of diplomatic relations, they had shared virtually nothing about their biology, maintained strict quarantine protocols, and required specialized environmental chambers for their ambassadors. The medical bay doors hissed open as Dominic approached. Inside, his team was already prepping the isolation chamber, the only space equipped to handle the specialized atmosphere the Nixtari required. Sir, docking complete, Lieutenant Patel's voice reported. Nixtari delegation is requesting immediate escort to medical, 3 individuals, 1 critical. Dominic tapped his neural implant, bringing up the limited xenobiological data on the Nixtari. Their silvery blue skin possessed subtle bioluminescent patterns. Nocturnal by nature, they processed oxygen but required different atmospheric pressure and trace elements. Their biology remained largely a mystery by their own insistence. I'll meet them at the airlock, Dominic decided, grabbing a portable atmospheric stabilizer. Whatever had driven the notoriously private Nixtari to seek human medical help had to be dire. The inner airlock door slid open to reveal 3 figures. 2 tall Nixtari supported a third between them, her slender frame nearly limp. Dominic's breath caught in his throat. The fallen Nixtari's skin, normally luminous with swirling patterns of blue-silver light, had dulled to an ashen gray. The patterns flickered weakly, like dying stars. Commander Reed, the taller Nixtari spoke, his melodic voice tight with an emotion Dominic had never heard from their kind. I am Ambassador Zephyr. This is Envoy Orion. We require immediate assistance for Emissary Lyra. Dominic approached cautiously, medical scanner already whirring in his hand. What happened? Nutritional synthesis failure, Ambassador Zephyr explained tersely. Our ship systems were contaminated during an ion storm, all reserves affected. Dominic helped guide them toward the medical bay, noting how the weakened Nixtari, Lyra, seemed to be growing more translucent by the minute. Her silver eyes fixed on him with unexpected intensity, sending an involuntary shiver down his spine. In the isolation chamber, Dominic calibrated the scanners to the little he knew of Nixtari physiology. The readings made his blood run cold. She's experiencing catastrophic cellular degradation, he muttered, studying the data. These readings suggest her molecular structure is literally dissolving. Without proper nutrients, our bodies cannot maintain cohesion, Envoy Orion explained with obvious reluctance. The synthesizer produces what we need. All reserves were contaminated. Dominic's mind raced. The synthesizer creates some specialized substance your bodies need regularly, something we could fabricate here. The 2 Nixtari exchanged glances before Ambassador Zephyr responded. It is not something we discuss with other species. We need to discuss it now if she's going to survive, Dominic countered, watching Lyra's vitals continue to plummet. "Is there anything compatible we could synthesize here? Something similar enough to sustain her?" "Our bodies require living plasma," Lyra whispered, her silver eyes fixing on Dominic with startling clarity despite her weakened state. "The synthesizer was created because we swore never to," she broke off, convulsing in pain. Dominic froze as the pieces clicked together. The Nyxtaris' nocturnal habits, their avoidance of medical scans, the specialized nutrition they required. "You're hemovores," he breathed, "blood drinkers." "Yes," Ambassador Zephyr confirmed, his posture stiffening with what Dominic recognized as ancient shame. "In our past, our ancestors consumed the vital fluids of other sentient species. The synthesizer was developed to free us from that dependency, to make peaceful contact possible." Dominic looked at Lyra's monitors. Her vitals were weakening rapidly. "How long until your supply vessel arrives?" he asked. "3 days," Envoy Orion replied grimly. Dominic's medical training told him the truth. Lyra wouldn't last 3 hours in her current state. He made his decision without hesitation, rolling up his sleeve and approaching Lyra's bedside. "If you need living plasma to survive until your supplies arrive," he said, extending his bare wrist, "I'm offering mine." The silence that followed was absolute. The Nyxtari stared at him with expressions ranging from disbelief to horror. "You cannot understand what you offer," Envoy Orion protested. "Human blood has never been. The compatibility is unknown. It could." "I'm giving you permission, Lyra," Dominic said, his eyes meeting hers. "Take what you need to survive." Something inexplicable passed between them in that moment, an understanding that transcended species barriers. With trembling fingers, Lyra reached for his offered wrist. Her touch was cool against his skin, sending an unexpected shiver through his body. "You truly wish to save me," she whispered, eyes wide with wonder, "even knowing what I am." "Yes," he answered simply. Lyra's silver eyes held his as she brought his wrist to her mouth. Dominic felt a brief sharp pain followed by an odd tingling sensation. The effect on Lyra was immediate and dramatic. Color rushed back into her skin, the iridescent patterns beneath pulsing with renewed vitality. But what happened next defied all scientific explanation. The medical bay systems erupted with warnings as Lyra's biological readings spiked beyond measurable parameters. Waves of energy began radiating from her body, bathing the room in soft blue light. "This is impossible," Ambassador Zephyr gasped, backing away. "Human blood should be toxic to our system. It's why we developed the synthetic alternative." Dominic barely heard him. The moment Lyra had begun feeding, he'd experienced something extraordinary, a mental connection forming between them. Through it flowed fragments of her memories, crystal cities beneath twin moons, generations of isolation, and an ancient secret buried so deeply that even the Nyxtari themselves had forgotten it. "Dominic," Lyra gasped, finally releasing his wrist. Her voice had taken on a resonant quality that seemed to vibrate through the air and directly into his mind. "What have you done to me?" The small wound on his wrist sealed instantly, leaving behind a delicate pattern of silvery scarring. Dominic stared at it, then at Lyra, whose transformation was continuing before their eyes. The geometric patterns beneath her skin shifted, forming new configurations that Ambassador Zephyr and Envoy Orion clearly recognized. Their expressions transformed from shock to reverence. "The ancestral patterns," Envoy Orion whispered. "But they were lost eons ago when we abandoned the ancient ways." Station security chose that moment to enter the medical bay, weapons drawn. They froze at the threshold, staring at Lyra, who now hovered several inches above the diagnostic bed, surrounded by swirling energy, while Dominic stood transfixed beside her. "Commander Reed," Captain Valentina Tor's voice cut through the tension. Would you care to explain why our sensors are detecting enough energy in this room to power the entire station?" Before Dominic could respond, the energy field expanded, enveloping him in its glow. Through their newfound connection, knowledge flowed freely between him and Lyra. "Your people weren't always dependent on synthetic plasma," he said to Lyra, the revelation crystallizing in his mind. "You were something else entirely. The synthetic plasma wasn't just sustenance. It was a suppressive agent designed to inhibit your true nature." Captain Tor's hand moved toward her sidearm, but Ambassador Zephyr stepped forward urgently. "Please do not interfere with what we are witnessing," he pleaded. "It should be impossible. Our most ancient texts speak of a time when our people could form symbiotic bonds with other species, sharing energy rather than simply consuming it. But that ability was supposedly lost to us." The energy surrounding Lyra and Dominic began to stabilize, forming intricate patterns that mirrored the markings on her skin. Through their connection, Dominic felt her confusion giving way to understanding, and beneath that, a rising anger. "Our entire civilization is built on a lie," she said, her voice carrying both pain and revelation. "The synthetic plasma wasn't created to free us from dependency. It was designed to prevent this very thing from happening, to keep us from discovering our true potential." Dominic found himself supporting Lyra as she finally descended back to the diagnostic bed, her transformation seemingly complete. Her skin now bore permanently luminescent markings that pulsed in sync with his heartbeat, and her silver eyes had gained subtle flecks of human amber around the edges. "The question," Captain Tor said cautiously, holstering her weapon, "is why? Why would anyone go to such lengths to suppress your species' natural abilities?" "Because they were afraid," came a new voice from the doorway. Dr. Rashida Khan, the station's chief archaeologist, entered, her tablet displaying ancient star charts. "I've been studying ruins that predate known galactic civilization. They all tell the same story, of a species that could bridge the gap between energy and matter, between different forms of life itself. A species that disappeared overnight, leaving behind only myths and warnings." Lyra touched one of the glowing markings on her arm, then reached for Dominic's crystalline scar. When their marks met, the energy in the room shifted again, forming holographic images in the air, star maps, biological diagrams, and scenes from a history deliberately erased. "We were the guardians," Lyra whispered, the memories flooding back through their shared connection. "We didn't prey on other species. We protected them, helped them evolve, maintained cosmic balance, until something happened. Something that made our ancestors choose to chain themselves with synthetic plasma rather than risk." She broke off as another wave of energy pulsed through her. Through their link, Dominic saw it all. A war that nearly destroyed the galaxy, a desperate decision made in crisis, and a warning about what would happen if the Nyxtari ever rediscovered their true nature. "Well," Captain Tor said dryly, watching as the energy display subsided, "I believe this officially exceeds my security clearance. Commander Reed, I trust you can handle whatever this is and ensure it doesn't threaten my station." Dominic nodded, still processing the implications of what they'd discovered. "I don't think we're dealing with a threat, Captain. If anything, we might be looking at the greatest breakthrough in interspecies relations since first contact." "Or the beginning of a revolution," Lyra added softly, her transformed eyes holding secrets that would soon shake both their civilizations to their cores. Blood bond revelation. The days following Lyra's transformation turned Helios Station's medical research wing into a hub of carefully controlled activity. The isolation chamber had been converted into a specialized research facility, its walls now covered with holographic displays showing the remarkable changes in Lyra's biological structure. But it was the changes that couldn't be measured by instruments that fascinated Dominic the most. "The memories are becoming clearer," Lyra said, her transformed eyes following patterns invisible to others. She sat cross-legged on the diagnostic bed, her crystalline skin emanating a soft glow that responded to her emotions. It's like accessing an ancient database that's slowly repairing itself. Dominic touched the silvery scar on his wrist, which had developed into an intricate pattern matching those that now adorned Lyra's skin. Through their deepening bond, he could sense fragments of what she was experiencing, echoes of a civilization that had once spanned galaxies. "Tell me what you see," he encouraged, activating the lab's recording systems. Dr. Khan had insisted on documenting everything, though they'd agreed to keep the full scope of their discoveries from both their governments until they understood more. "We weren't always confined to physical forms," Lyra began, her voice taking on that resonant quality that made the air itself seem to vibrate. "My people could exist as both matter and energy, shifting between states as naturally as humans breathe. We were shepherds of life itself." The lights in the bay flickered as Lyra's energy field expanded, projecting three-dimensional images of impossible cities that seemed to be built from pure light. Through their connection, Dominic felt the weight of eons pressing against his consciousness. "The synthetic plasma," she continued, her expression darkening. "It wasn't just suppressing our abilities. It was suppressing our memories, keeping us from remembering what we once were, or what we could be again." A soft chime announced Dr. Khan's arrival. The archaeologist entered carrying an ancient artifact, a crystalline sphere that pulsed with its own inner light. "I think you need to see this," she said, placing it carefully on a sensor pad. "We found it in the ruins on Proxima Centauri b. It's been inert for millennia, but ever since your transformation." She gestured at the sphere, which had begun glowing brighter as Lyra approached. Symbols appeared on its surface, the same patterns that now marked Lyra's skin and Dominic's wrist. Without thinking, Lyra reached out to touch it. The medical bay exploded with light as ancient technology recognized its long-lost masters. Through their bond, Dominic was nearly overwhelmed by the flood of information pouring into Lyra's mind. He saw vast fleets of crystalline ships maintaining harmony among newborn civilizations. He witnessed human ancestors, barely emerged from caves, being gently guided by beings of light and wisdom. And then he saw the darkness that changed everything. "The Void Hunters," Lyra gasped, pulling her hand back from the sphere. "They came from between the galaxies, drawn by our light. They fed on energy itself. And we, who existed in both energy and matter, were a feast they couldn't resist." The images shifted to scenes of an ancient war. Beings of pure darkness clashed with Lyra's ancestors across the stars. Whole systems were devoured, civilizations lost. In desperation, the Guardians made their terrible choice. The synthetic plasma, Dominic realized, the pieces finally falling into place. It wasn't just about suppressing your abilities, it was about hiding you. Ambassador Zephyr, who had become a constant presence in their research, stepped forward from his observation post. "By limiting ourselves to purely physical forms, by dampening our energy signatures, we became invisible to the Void Hunters. We sacrificed what we were to survive." "You didn't just hide yourselves," Dr. Khan interjected, her quick mind connecting historical dots. "You hid every trace of your true nature. All those ruins I've been studying, they're not just abandoned cities. They're decoys meant to suggest a purely physical civilization." Lyra nodded, her transformed eyes reflecting ancient starlight. The synthetic plasma wasn't meant to last forever. It was supposed to be temporary, just until the threat passed. But somewhere along the way, we forgot. The lie became our truth. "And now," Captain Tor's voice came from the doorway. She had been keeping a careful eye on their research, balancing scientific curiosity with station security. "What happens when your people discover what's been done to them? What happens when the Void Hunters realize you're waking up?" Dominic felt Lyra's fear and determination through their bond. But there was something else too, a sense of purpose that transcended mere survival. She stood, her luminescent patterns brightening with resolve. The Void Hunters were never the real threat, she said, touching the ancient sphere again. This time, instead of chaos, the images it projected were clear and purposeful. They were just part of the natural cycle, predators drawn to prey. The real failure was in how we fought them. Through their connection, Dominic understood. You tried to fight darkness with light, he said softly. Pure energy against pure entropy, but that only made you more visible, more attractive to them. Yes, Lyra's patterns pulsed with excitement. But now, thanks to you, we have a third option. A balance between energy and matter, between light and shadow, something new. She held up her arm where the patterns matched Dominic's scar perfectly. This bond between us, it's not just biological. It's a template for a new way of existing. One that doesn't need to hide but also can't be consumed by the darkness. Dr. Khan was already running new scans, her eyes wide with possibility. The human element. It anchors the energy somehow, creates a stable matrix that. She was interrupted by a station-wide alert. Captain Tor's communicator crackled to life. Multiple ships dropping out of FTL, ma'am, came the urgent report. It's the entire Nixtari High Council. They're demanding to speak with Commander Reed and the one they're calling the Awakened. Lyra's hand found Dominic's, their patterns synchronizing automatically. Through their bond, he felt not fear but a fierce joy. They felt it, she said. Every Nixtari in the galaxy, they're remembering. Her eyes met his, a question forming between them. The question is, are they ready for the truth? Captain Tors checked her sidearm out of habit. Truth's going to happen whether they're ready or not, Commander Reed. I hope you're prepared to explain to the Nixtari leadership why one of their diplomats is suddenly glowing like a newborn star. Dominic looked at Lyra, seeing in her transformed eyes the future they'd glimpsed together. One where humanity and the Nixtari might help each other evolve into something greater than either species could become alone. Sometimes, he said, squeezing Lyra's hand, the best explanations start with a simple act of trust. Helios Station's main conference chamber had never been designed to contain the kind of power now flooding through it. 7 members of the Nixtari High Council sat in a perfect semicircle, their traditionally stoic faces showing rare expressions of shock as they witnessed Lyra's transformation. The crystalline patterns beneath their skin flickered with suppressed recognition, as though something long dormant was struggling to wake. This is abomination, First Counselor Thalia declared, though her silver eyes never left the glowing patterns that danced across Lyra's skin. You have violated our most sacred laws by accepting human blood. The synthetic plasma is a chain, Lyra interrupted, her transformed eyes meeting Thalia's without flinching. A prison built by our own ancestors, designed to make us forget what we truly are. Dominic stood beside her, acutely aware of the energy flowing between them through their bond. Through it, he could sense the council members' internal struggle, their ingrained revulsion warring with an instinctive recognition of truth. Show them, he whispered to Lyra, not just the words, show them what you showed me. Lyra nodded and raised her hands. The chamber's lights dimmed as her energy field expanded, encompassing the entire council. Images formed in the air, not the chaos of her first memories, but a carefully curated history of their species. The ancient cities of light, the role of guardians, the coming of the Void Hunters, and the desperate choice that led to their current state. Impossible, Third Counselor Nemeth breathed, but his hand had moved unconsciously to his throat, where the ports for synthetic plasma injection lay hidden. Our databases contain no record of. Because they were erased, Dr. Khan stepped forward, holding up the ancient sphere. Your entire civilization was redesigned to forget. The synthetic plasma doesn't just suppress your abilities, it suppresses these memories, generation after generation. The sphere pulsed in response to the collected presence of so many Nixtari, its surface swirling with the same patterns that marked Lyra and Dominic's bond. First Counselor Thalia rose from her seat, her composure cracking. "If what you show us is true," she said, her voice trembling, "then every foundation of our society is built on deception. Millions of our people imprisoned not by necessity but by choice." "Not by fear of the Void Hunters," Lyra corrected gently. "By fear of the responsibility we once held." She gestured to Dominic. "But humanity has shown us another way. Through Dominic's blood, I've discovered what our ancestors never considered, a balance between what we were and what we could become." Captain Torres, who had been silently observing, chose this moment to intervene. "With all due respect to both species present, we need to address the immediate concerns. If this revelation spreads—" "It already has," Fifth Counselor Rivek interrupted. His patterns were visibly brightening. Every Nextari in the galaxy felt the moment of Lyra's awakening. The synthetic plasma facilities are reporting unprecedented failures. Our people are remembering, whether we will it or not. Dominic felt a surge of anxiety through his bond with Lyra. They had expected resistance from the Council, but this, a galaxy-wide awakening, was beyond their predictions. "The Void Hunters," he said, voicing their shared concern. "If all your people start awakening at once—" "Will be visible again," Lyra finished, "a beacon in the darkness." First Counselor Thalia's expression hardened. "Then perhaps it is better to maintain the deception, to strengthen the suppression." "No," Lyra's voice carried such authority that even the council members straightened in their seats. "We've hidden long enough. The Void Hunters were never the true threat. Our fear was. We abandoned countless developing civilizations to face the darkness alone, all because we couldn't imagine a middle path." She held up her arm, showing where her patterns matched Dominic's crystalline scar. "This bond proves it's possible. Human blood doesn't just awaken our old abilities, it stabilizes them, creates a perfect balance between energy and matter that even the Void Hunters can't disrupt." Through their connection, Dominic felt her drawing on his strength, using their shared energy to project one final vision. The conference chamber filled with images of a possible future, Nixtari and humans working together, sharing knowledge and abilities, creating defenses that neither species could achieve alone. "The choice our ancestors made was wrong," Lyra declared. "They saw only two options, godlike power or complete suppression, but there's always another way." She turned to Dominic, her transformed eyes softening. "Humans taught me that. Your species has an incredible gift for finding paths where none seem to exist." The council chamber fell silent as her words sank in. Dominic could feel the weight of history pressing down on them all, the fate of two species hanging in the balance. But through their bond, he sensed something else in Lyra, not just hope, but certainty. First Counselor Thalia rose slowly, her own patterns beginning to pulse with long-forgotten light. "You propose we end 50,000 years of separation, that we trust our species' future to an untested bond with humanity." "I propose we stop living in fear," Lyra answered. "The universe is changing. The Void Hunters are not the only threat out there, and humanity is not the only species that needs guardians. Together, we could be something new. Not gods, not servants, but true partners in evolution." Dominic felt a tremor run through the station, not physical but energetic. Through their bond, he sensed what Lyra already knew. Across the galaxy, more Nixtari were awakening, breaking free from millennia of suppression. The tide of change was rising, and not even the High Council could stop it now. Captain Tor's communicator crackled to life. "Multiple anomalies detected in nearby space, ma'am. Something's coming through." The council members rose as one, their patterns flaring with ancestral recognition. Lyra's grip on Dominic's hand tightened as they all felt it, a darkness stirring between the stars, drawn by the light of awakening Nixtari across the galaxy. "Well," Dominic said, his crystalline scar pulsing in sync with Lyra's patterns, "I guess we're about to test that balance theory sooner than we thought."